This is how it was. The people were scared, and some were angry. And so they came to him and they said, "Tell us who you are. Tell us what we should do." And he said, "Tell me what you remember." And they said, "We remember when food rained from the heavens. We remembered when God rained manna down, when we were filled from the clouds. We remember when we looked up into the sky and life itself fell down upon us." And he said, "Yes." And it was as if God had been planning for decades, for centuries, for millennia. It was as if God had been wondering for all that time what the best target would be, where God should send him, where he should be deployed. And then God sent him, and then here's what he did. He assembled a team of 12, a crack team. A team who could do what needed to be done, and he sent them out. And when they landed, they blew the people's hair back, and they fell to their knees, and they praised God. Here's how it was. The people were afraid, and they were angry. And they asked themselves, they didn't ask God, they asked themselves, "What should we do?" And so they met for months. They asked themselves what the best target would be, where the most damage could be done, what would be the most demoralizing. The government had been dropping leaflets over Japan for months, warning of air raids, but they did not drop them over Hiroshima. Because they decided, it's written down, it's recorded, they decided that it would have a greater psychological impact if the bomb were a surprise. So they assembled a team of 12, a crack team, a team who could do what needed to be done, and they packed them into the Enola Gay, and she took off from the Mariana Islands on August 6th, 1945. And just before she took off, there were all those cameras there running and clicking and flashing, and the pilot leaned out the cockpit and gave a jaunty wave before he took off into the sky. And the people looked up, and fire rained from the sky. Their deaths came hurtling out of the clouds. The end of everything fell on them from the stars. And the people's hair was blown back, and they fell to their knees and cried out in agony. Here's how it was. The people were worried. They didn't know about the state of the world. They didn't know where it was tending. The people were worried. And so they asked God. They didn't ask themselves. They asked God, "What should we do?" And God said, "What do you remember?" And the people said, "We remember when bread rained from the heavens. We knew it was you, O God, because it was life that fell from the sky." And he said, "Yes." And so the people met for months and months. They asked themselves what the best target would be, where they could have the biggest impact, where, when they landed, they could make the most change. And they assembled a team of 12, a crack team of youth and adults from Plymouth Church. And they got up early in the morning on a Tuesday, and they met at the Wegmans DeWitt parking lot. And they took off at 7 a.m. And there stood all their parents with their phones and their cameras clicking, and before they took off, they leaned out of the car and gave a jaunty wave, and then they headed east. And when they landed, they had hammers in their hands and the bread of life to offer. They didn't go with manna They didn't fly in on angels' wings. They didn't drop down in the night. They drove in homely cars and minivans and rented 15-person vans from the rental shop. But they didn't go alone. They went filled up with the bread of heaven. The gifts of God, the stuff of life. They went so full of that life that had rained down from the sky that when they got there, they couldn't help but overflow. They couldn't help but have it run through their hands as they held them out to the people in Orland, Maine. And the missionaries and the people that lived there, they got to work. And their hair was blown back, and they fell to their knees, and they praised God. And they looked up to the sky, and they said, "Give us this bread always." Amen.